Hello, welcome to this is a bonus video. Most of my videos are bonus videos because, well, if they ever get made at all, it's a miracle. So this one I promised in the last unpacking video, unpacking 3. I'm going to start numbering them so that you know where I am. I promised that I would have this coming the next day, and it's arrived. So there's a couple of things in here, but before I open this, I just want to quickly talk about these. Now, I did find my original bag of these type of things, and I found that, well, I did an experiment with one of these red ones that are the same looking as these. I did an experiment, put some wire into these, heated it a bit hotter than these at 330 rather than the 280 I was using, and somebody has told me that I need to be using high heat on these. It's like an automotive type connector. So I cranked it up to 330. I could probably go a bit higher, and connected the 2 wires in the middle with the low melt solder, and then melted the other ends. And I tried to pull them apart, and the wire snapped before the solder gave way. So these worked. So I went back to these and I did the same thing. I put the wire in exactly the same way, and I heated it to the same heat, and again they just came apart. Somebody did mention that my wire might be aluminium. That's possible. It is, you know, it's probably aluminium, but it doesn't feel, I don't know. I'd have to get a naked flame. I haven't got any naked flames in here, and to see if it curls up. But I will report back on that. But it did actually work with this sort of stuff, with these connectors. These ones are rubbish. So there is something else in here, and I think it might be connected to that, because there is a double bag in here. Bags within bags. There's one. I actually don't know what this is now. I thought I knew what it was, but it doesn't feel... Oh, no, it is. It is what I thought. It's a smaller version of those same things. I think it came from the same place as these, so I hold out little hope. Anyway, let's just chuck those to one side. This is the main event. Now, somebody on the Retro Hardware Discord told me that they had ordered this. I'll put their name up on screen. I can't remember it at the moment, and because I'm terrible with names. They'd ordered one of these, and it cost, I think this cost £32 delivered, and it's obviously a soldering station for £32. A T12. Well, it's the actual model number is a T12Xplus soldering station from OSS Team. But I thought for £35, I'm curious to see exactly how good this is, because for £35, you can't really go wrong. Now, that's in the ballpark of a Pinecil soldering iron, and I don't use this one anymore. I use my Sugon A9, which is down here. You can just see it behind. Let's get that out of the way. Yeah, that's my Sugon A9, which I love. That is absolutely brilliant. I'm not replacing that with this, but yeah, I replaced this with my Sugon A9. This is a good soldering iron, but it's not quite, well, it's not as powerful as the Sugon. That thing just goes through ground planes like you wouldn't believe. This works for 99% of what I do for old vintage machines, but then every now and then it will just struggle on a ground plane, and just, you know, you can feel the tip getting stuck. I'm hoping that this, and you know, for £35 that's not bad, but you do need a power supply like the one I've got sitting under here. Oop, no, this one under here. This is a 65-watt power supply, and that's the sort of thing you need to run one of these, or a laptop power supply will plug in. It's got barrel jack and USB-C as well. It can run up to 24 volts. I think it's rated at somewhere close to 100 watts, but I think it's speculative. Now, I ordered the 220 volt version of this, and they've sent me a kettle lead with I think that's an American. That's a bit disappointing. And I paid a little bit extra for the 220 volt, so it should be switchable. I'm hoping it's switchable. That's quite a nice stand. That's not bad at all, actually. Not sure what this bit's for, whether it's just for a sponge or you got, you know, maybe that's just to catch the different bits and pieces of solder that fly off. But yeah, it's got the little sponge in there. I'm assuming that that is. Let's get that out. See if it's magnetic. No, it's not magnetic. Magnet just falls straight out. That's good. So that's proper brass. There we go. Perfect. And this must be the soldering iron. So it comes with one T12 tip. Yeah, T12 BLS. What shape is that? I'm assuming it's a pointed one. Oh, it's like a needle. That's absolutely no use to me whatsoever. Oh, that doesn't want to come out of there. There we go. Yeah, that is a really, really sharp, super sharp needle point on that. I can see that being useful. This feels really light. Lead-free T12 BLS. That's yeah. If that had any kind of heft to it, let's compare it to these are the T100 tips. I mean, these have this big flange around the middle, so they just feel like they've got a bit more metal. Right. So anyway, that's the tip. The actual iron itself with a ground lead and a crocodile clip. That's quite nice. I think these things can be a deal breaker, the leads on these, if they're not good enough silicon. That feels quite nice. I'm quite impressed with that. It's mostly plastic construction, but there's nothing really wrong with that. Keep getting these. Well, I don't understand. I've got another one of these over here that came with my Yahuwah desoldering station. It's absolutely got covered in dust and muck. And there's the sponge that goes in there as well. So accessories. Oh, it doesn't feel very heavy. Okay, we've got a big IEC on the back and a nice big chunky switch. That must be where the ground lead plugs in if needed. And we've got the heater plug in the front here, which can only go in one way, like that. And a dial control here with lots of markings around there, but not actually anything that it points to. It must just all be controlled on the screen. And I'm assuming that just goes in there. Now, the good thing about the Sugon tips, these type of tips here, that's hot. I didn't realise that was on. Is that on my Sugon station? Actually, can you see it? Yeah, you can see it here. I can take the tip out by doing this because it's got a little hook bit in there. But these will not do that. I mean, you can take them out. I'm already nervous that it's going to be hot. They're nice and easy to get out. That must be what the silicon thing is for, to grab hold of that to take it out. Yeah, that's got to be what that's for. Oh, that's quite a nice fit in there. It does feel like it might jump out occasionally. If you don't, I don't know actually. But it's not going to take much to knock that out. But a lot of them are like that. That's not a huge criticism. It says 100 to 240 volts on the back here, 50 to 60 hertz, and T12. And that's got the model number, and the power rating is 75 watts. Temperature 80 to 480 C. Made in China. it's not terrible feeling. High voltage, do not open. Oh, I'm going to open it. You can be assured about that. But I'm going to just plug it in first and see what happens. Switched on. Don't really want it switched on. Right, please don't electrocute me. Right, red light on the back. And that's already heating up. So is there no sensor on this to say stop heating up, or is that just sit at 350 degrees? Oh, that's weird. I have to, oh no. Okay, so that's where the temperature is set. It's actually on the right hand side here. So I'm moving that, but that's moving around all over the place. If I leave that at 300, will that cool down? Because it was set at 350, but then I did go up to about 400. So I set it to 350. It's showing how much power is being used. There's a lot of Chinese on this interface. Press and hold. Oh yeah. Yeah, no obvious language change here. How do I go back? Do I just wait? I don't want to change anything. I'm just going to leave that because that's at 350, and I'm just going to get my tester thing, solder tester thing. I know words. Let's see what this reads. That's not very good. I'm just going to turn that off. Wait for that to go off and back on again. And hopefully, right, set for 350 now. Right, now it's at 350. I think me going into the menu changed something. Yeah, here we go. This is better. Well, I say better. It's 304. Yeah, it needs a bit of calibrating. Right, there's a couple of things I want to test first before I'm going to go. I'm going to go and look for instructions for this to see if I can find out if I can change the language. I suspect I can't, and it might just be that I have to learn Chinese, or use some Google translating. But I want to know two things. One is this case earthed, and I can do that by connecting that to there and then testing for continuity between one of these bare screws here and the earth pin of my 3-pin plug here. Right, holding against the 3-pin plug here. Right, so the case is not earthed, but that doesn't mean the tip of the iron isn't earthed. With an earthed plug, I think that this should be an earthed case, but it can, if it's double insulated and if it's marked as double insulated, and it is not, it doesn't have the sign on there for being double insulated, it should be earthed. Let me just check that this cable has got a good earth. Yep, so the cable is definitely earthed. What about the tip? Now hold on here. The tip's earthed. Okay, so the tip is earthed. That's a good thing for the safety of the stuff that you're working on, so that you haven't got any leaking current going through it. But I would have thought that the case, being metal, should be earthed. Okay, right, before I take it apart, because I might not put it back together, I might do something horribly wrong to it, I am going to go and quickly look for any instructions that I can find, see if I can change the language, and then if I can get it calibrated, that would be nice to get it in a reasonable state. Then I want to check how quickly it heats up. That would be nice to know. I can't really do very much with this tip in terms of testing it for how well it performs, because these needle tips are for micro soldering, and I can't check how well this is going to cope with a heavy ground plane, so it's not much point in doing that. Let me have a look at something. Okay, right. So it's option 7 in the menu. I don't like holding this metal case without it being earthed. That's not very pleasant for me, but for science, I'm going to do it for you. Right, so here we go. I don't know how well you can see that. I'll try and hold it still. So that's heating up, so I have to be aware of that. Press and hold this, and go down to option 7. Press again, and there we go. Language English. Do I press and hold again? There we go. And now I can explore. So this, all right, okay, so we've got 200, 350, 450. I don't know. Just, it looks like I can cycle between them. So that's now 400. Oh, that was boost. So now that's going back to 350. So that's, yeah, 400 is the boost. Don't know why it's got 200, 300 and 450 here. Do I just... I don't know, because that's just changing the set. And it's jumping up in 10-degree increments. Okay, let's press and hold and see what we get. Calibration. Right, target temp, real temp. Okay, so the target temperature is 350. And the real temperature is... 315, let's say. All right, difference. I don't know what I'm doing here. So I'm going to put that to 90, well, it's a 90.1. Let's see what that does. Okay, that's gone down. Right, so... Right, down to 80. See what that does. 317. Or 326. It jumps about. Let's take another 10 off of this. You have to turn it a lot. I don't know if there's a way to... No. Let's go down another 10. I'm changing this correct difference here. Sorry if it's jumping around, but it's difficult to hold this in the air with this IEC sticking out the back of it. All right, let's see what that does on... we are 300 and... Oh, wow. It keeps... Look at that. It's just jumped up 13 degrees. And now it's going back down again. That's actually less than ideal. So with 360, let's take 5 or add 5 back onto this. See what that does. And that's now 330. All right, so take a bit more off. Let's go back down to 72.5. Okay, I'm happier around that range. If that's going to jump up back over 350, look, here it goes. Right, so I don't want it to go over the target temperature, so that's not bad. You know, just a little down to 72 on there. Okay, I'm going to press and hold this to reset that, and then we can see what this does. I don't know if you'll be able to see. on the load. It's right, it's loading now, it's pumping energy in now, so that's going up, and it's doing it again, and it's going up, and it's doing it again, so it's going up a little bit more. Yeah, it's not too bad. Oh yep, we're up to 350, 351. It's not very stable. Okay, so my big bugbear with this is the lack of sleep. So let's see if it does anything about that. Short cut temp, auto idle, auto sleep. Auto sleep delay is wake up handle. Okay, so 10 minutes it will go to sleep. What's shortcut temp? Oh, that's the boost temperature. Oh no, I pressed it too long. Shortcut temp. Oh no, I'm going to leave it at 350. All right. Auto idle. After 60 seconds, it will go down to 200 degrees. That's fine. That's okay. I'm all right with that. Temp boost. Oh. Boost temperature plus 50 degrees, hold time 30 seconds. Is there a button on the handle I'm missing or something? There is not. There's no button on the handle. It's not a sophisticated tool. Temp step, so that goes in 10 degree steps, that's fine. And language, sound switch, I'll leave that on. Factory set, system info. Hardware T23H1, software T24S2. Okay. Okay, so this is a scrap Spectrum motherboard. I just want to see what this tip does. It's not too bad actually, even on that. That is struggling a little bit. Just to get the heat into these simple pads is struggling a bit. But if I tried to do something like one of these heavier ones over here, trying to get 350 degree heat into that's not actually doing anything. That's it's just starting to melt a little bit. Here we go. Now it's got it. There's a big heavy ground plane there. That's got some of the Kingbo flux on it from the other day. But that is really struggling to melt that one. Now, I haven't put any fresh flux on, any fresh solder on this, so it's a pretty difficult test for it. But at 350 degrees, I think with a bigger tip on this, this would actually be fine. It's not, I mean, there's no load on the tip. It's not actually conducting any heat at all. If I turn my other iron on, I mean, that's still heating up, and I've not even wiped the tip, but that is already melting that. That's molten straight away. These tips are terrible. I have ordered some more. There'll be some more here tomorrow, so I might delay finishing off the end of this video and try it with some other tips as well. But I'm going to take it apart before I do that. Let's turn it off, disconnect it from the mains. Feels like that one was cross-threaded a bit. Okay, some big capacitors in there, so I'm going to have to be a little bit careful. But I can tell you that this is not double insulated. This should be earthed. I don't think this is compliant. Not with my region's electrical laws. Oh, the top comes off. That's handy. It's in 2 halves. That's quite nice, actually. It's quite a nice box that it comes in, but saves me taking the whole thing apart. So it's quite a beefy, obviously, you know, 70 something watt. It says 120 watt down here on this board. Just in there, it says 120 watts. And Lord Free Soldering Power or something. There's a bit of glue over it, but Lord Free. There's is the text down here. Lord Free. So all that's holding that in place currently is that screw, that piece of glue, and that piece of glue. And the electrical connections on the back of the IEC socket and the socket for the ground point. I don't understand why they have not made the case earthed. It doesn't make any sense. Got a little fuse there. Not great. I'm not that impressed. It does look like there's got good electrical separation between the high voltage and the low voltage side. There's some cuts in the board here and here. But I'm not an expert on power supply, so I wouldn't... oh, it looks like there's a Class Y cap going over the 2 sides there. So this must be the high voltage side here, and this must be the low voltage side here. Why? And there's a screw going through the board here in this corner. Is that connected to earth? It can't be, because otherwise the case would be earthed. This is earth here. I'm fairly sure. Yeah, that's the earth pin. That is not connected to earth. Couple of 400 volt capacitors there. I'm not going anywhere near the other side of this board. And that is, I mean, there's not really a lot between. I mean, there's good separation, but it is just a metal case down in there between those 400 volt capacitors on the other side, and the metal case. It would be pretty impossible for the board to come loose and then drop down onto the case, but maybe if like it got crushed, then you would have live voltage on the case. If someone stood on, you know, that's not actually, this bit is not actually that strong. If somebody stood on that, on the bottom side, and pushed the case up into those capacitors, you could potentially get live voltage on here without an earth, with no earth protection. If that was earthed, then your fuse would blow in the plug, or the circuit breaker would trip in your on your distribution board. But it's not earthed. It wouldn't know. It would just become part of the circuit. Worrisome. I was going to give this away because I don't need it, but it is of sufficiently poor quality that I would not feel safe passing it on to anybody. So I don't know what I'm going to do with it. I've ordered. There's probably 4 tips on the way for this. What a waste of money. It's not a terrible iron in and of itself, but I would not feel safe with this one. I mean, I am not an expert, so I stand to be corrected if I've got something wrong here, but I don't think I have. Something else I don't like is these wires being pushed up against this case, and there are a few sharp edges around here, and wires are pushed up against them. This is the low voltage side, so it shouldn't be a problem, but it's less than ideal. Yep, metal case, not double insulated. A very, very poor show. Not happy with that. Let's see if it actually still works though. Makes me even more nervous turning it on and plugging live mains into it now. There we go. That was my multimeter. It still takes quite a while to heat up as well. I'm going to let that cool down. Shush. I'm going to let that cool down and see how long it takes to actually heat up. All right, I lost my camera for a little while, so you wouldn't have seen my glorious face for probably about half an hour. But I managed to rescue the footage, and where I left it was I want to test this, how fast this heats up, and we can do that now. Now you can see it's room temperature. It's cold actually. So I'm just going to flow with my oven. Is that good? No, there's plenty of solder on there. Let's just do that. Right, so I'm ready with the IEC switch here, and I'll get my arm out of the way so you can see. Oh, maybe I'll zoom down a little bit. Okay, right. So soldering iron in place. 3, 2, 1, go. That's not too bad. Yeah, it's not too bad. Well, it's gone up to 360, so there's a big 10-degree, well, 362. And that's saying 350 again on there. So that's gone 367. Yeah, I'm not enjoying that aspect of it. I want to be able to trust the temperature a bit more than that. Let's turn that off. So my Sugon only goes down to 100 degrees. I've set that to 100 degrees. So from the time it takes me to get that from the cradle to this tester, it's going to heat up a bit. And then I'm going to hit the channel 2 button on here, which is 300, I think that's 350, yeah, 350 degrees. Got any temperature in there at the moment. So you ready? And go. Yeah, that's quite a bit quicker. And it slows down as it reaches, 340 and then slowly edges its way up to the 350-ish. Look at that. That's that one. I've also got the Pinecil here. I can connect that up to the power supply that I'm using. It's not the best one I've got, but it will do for this. It's I know it can go a bit quicker if I plug it into a much more powerful power supply. Okay, so that's switched on now, and I think I press that button and it will start heating. Get it in place. Here we go. And a dirty tip as well on this one, so it feels a similar speed to the T12Xplus thing. But again, this is slowing down before it gets to, oh, it's only set to 320. Yeah, the actual iron is set to 320. So that needs calibrating. I haven't used this one really. And in fact, this is a brand new one. Right, so I think what I'm going to do now, I've got the other tips arriving tomorrow for this thing. I'll wait until they get here before I finish off this video. I'm not holding out any hope that it's going to miraculously win me over. I think that this is actually junk. Not sure it's even worth doing the final tests, but I have got those tips coming and I want to just see how they perform, and maybe I'll use them in something else. But that is junk. Yeah, I'll see you tomorrow. Okay, it's the next day, and a nice man has delivered this from Amazon. Or it might have been a nice lady. I didn't see them because they just threw the package at my door and then left without ringing the bell. So I didn't get to record it earlier in the day like I wanted to, because I didn't know it was sitting on my doorstep for an hour. But this is a BC2, a T12 BC2 tip, which is a chisel, no, a bevel, no, yeah, bevel tip. So it's basically angled off over that way, and that's basically what I use here. This one's, no, it's about exactly the same size, I'm going to say, as what I use on my Sugon. I think, are those T245s, something like that? I really don't know. So let's pop this in here. It's not on, is it? And one thing I've been concerned about with this is that, I don't know, these ones are really friction fit in here quite tightly, so they don't tend to turn around. Yeah, these aren't too bad. It's a bit easier to turn around, but I don't think it's going to move around on its own as a matter of course. Now, I've got some other news on this thing and the problems with it. The problems being that it is dangerous. It is supposed to be earthed if it's a metal case and it's not double insulated. It is definitely supposed to be earthed. The casing of this is anodized aluminium, but these are steel screws, and they're, you know, even though it's a non-conductive material, the anodized surface should make it not conductive. I'll do it on the bottom, so because I'm going to scratch it just to prove a point. Yeah. So it isn't conductive, but if I push a bit harder, I didn't have to actually push that hard, to be fair, that does become conductive. So it's not an insulated material, even though it's on the very, very surface of it is not conductive. If there were 240 volts going through this, and I touch this and say an earthed appliance at the same time, that current would jump that gap. There's not enough clearance between there. That would definitely arc into my hand, go through my chest, and then find its way to earth at the same time, stopping my heart. Yeah, wouldn't be ideal. So that's definitely, not to labour the point too much, a massive problem with this. Now, I did find some videos. There is a bunch of videos on a different model of this. This has been around for about 4 or 5 years now, and it was quite popular about 4 or 5 years ago. And I don't know why it's resurfaced now, but there is another model of this. This one is made by OSS Team. There's on the bottom there, OSS Team. And the other ones that I've seen videos on are KSGER, KSGER. If you want to find videos on how to fix the problems in these, you can find, I think 4X has done a really good video on the fix for these, so I'm not going to do that. I'm not even going to fix it because I'm not going to use it. What he's done is drill a hole through the back here. In fact, you could probably just repurpose this. No, it's probably better to drill a hole through the back here and make sure that you grind back some of the anodized coating as well. He also ground back all of the points behind, you know, that join all of the cases together. So the top half of the case and the bottom half of the case are connected to these front panels electrically. So grind the back surface of this and the front surface of this, so that there is an electrical path through all of the casing, and it is all connected together. Yeah, and put a bolt through there with a lug on the other side, an earth wire that connects to the earth pin on the back of the connector in here. I'm not going to take it apart again to illustrate this, and I'm not going to fix it. There were some other fixes as well that he did with putting some insulator underneath the circuit board. That was a good idea. I like that. And there were some differences. He mentioned some differences on earlier versions of the PCB being quite dangerous, having some places where, you know, like heat sinks were close to high voltage traces. It wasn't ideal, but they seem to have fixed a lot of that stuff. And there was another thing that I saw, I can't remember whether it was on 4X's video, where there was some leakage current between earth and the tip, and some, I think it was like 90 odd volts or something like that, and the earthing the case seemed to fix that. Well, I've tested that with this one. I'm not going to do it again now because it just doesn't happen. There's a perfect path between this tip and earth in here, so there's no leakage current. So anyway, the only thing to test now is if this tip is any better than the rubbish one that came with it, this thin one. So I'm going to turn on my tester here. All right, 3, 2, 1, click. Oh, and whilst that's heating up, I have to say it did heat up faster than my Sugon and faster than the Pinecil as well. But that's meant to be, my God, what? It says 350 degrees on the front of this panel, and that's over 400. What the hell is going on there? I don't like that. And I did find out that, yep, that's boost, don't want that. You can double press this to go back. That was what I needed. So calibration. I still don't get this, but I think if I go up, I don't understand why it's saying this real temp. How does it know what the real temperature is? Oh, I see. Well, yeah, that's I mean, that's not actually indicative of what's going on with the calibration thing, but that's the what it thinks the temperature is. And that goes between 330 to 360. It bounces up and down like crazy. And the correction, or the correct differ number, doesn't seem to have any relation to, you change one on here. It's not a degrees. It's an arbitrary amount. Okay, so I've got 350 odd on here, 357. It's gone up to a bit more. Take that down a little bit. Okay, that's not too bad. I'm happy with, well, I say I'm happy with that. I'm not happy with this machine at all. I don't like it. I don't like it. And the last thing I want to do is just have a little solder with it, just to see what it's like, because it's probably worth. I've been holding it actually up here on this plastic part, and this bit down here is silicon, and you can feel the heat through it, but it is quite well protected, and that does feel pretty comfortable to use. I feel like it's got a lot of control. I'm going to flow some solder onto these joints in here on this ULA connector. Bent over pin there, that was getting in my way. Yeah, this is okay. I'm not going to say it's any different to any other soldering iron doing this. This is very light duty work. It shouldn't struggle with this at all. This size tip is ideally suited for this. It's big enough to carry enough thermal mass to get the heat into those joints there. That is the joint that we struggled with yesterday with the other really fine tip. This one is connected to a lot of ground material around here, so I'm just going to see if I can get that to flow. Yeah, it's not too bad. As I hold that on there, the temperature is saying 350 degrees on the front, and the power is going up and down. That's got it. There's another point here. This is one end of this capacitor on the end of the Spectrum motherboard, and this point here is connected to all of this ground here. So this one is always a massive pain to get out. When I recap these, I used to use hot air and the soldering iron at the same time. That's really struggling. Let's give it a... I would normally use some fresh solder at the same time. So let's give it every chance. I just need to bend that lead up. The other end is here. That's already been desoldered, probably with a desoldering station in some form of testing that I did. Okay, let's try to use my trusty engineer pump, perfectly branded, with one of my new silicone nozzles on it that I got nice and cheap. That's gone into sleep. Temperature is now, can you see that? Yeah, 270 and dropping. Why has that gone into sleep? Why is that sleeping? Okay, let's come back to wait. I think it needs quite aggressive movements to keep it awake. So let's back up to 350. Yeah, that's no, not even a chance of that clearing. Give that another go. Let's flow some solder. I mean, you can't really see that, but I can tell you that there's no way that that capacitor would come out of there. I'm struggling to flow the solder onto this joint, even though I've been heating it for a little while as well. I think it's done a better job that time, but still not convinced. No. Oh, God. That capacitor is really hot now. It's a little unfair and not really a good representation of the difference, but I'm going to try my Sugon at the same temperature just to flow that. Oh, that's just butter that goes on there. And this is exactly how I would normally do this. Ooh, get some, but with a desoldering station. Yeah, it still struggled. It's a horrible one to actually try and get out. Oh, it's really, really hot. It's a hot joint now, so it is going in there quite a bit easier. Yeah, look at the solder is just, if I'm trying to flow some solder into this area here, this is where the modulator would normally connect. And this is not happy. The iron just stuck for a second then. Let's go for this other one. So this one's cold. Look, the solder is just flowing straight into there. That is just a massive, massive difference. All right, I think I've done enough. I've burnt enough things, and I've risked life and limb. Let's get that unplugged and never see it on my bench again. You might see this on my bench again. I quite like that. I might be using that in other things. Quite like the little solder, the little brass wall bit underneath there. That's quite nice. Yeah. But this, I will give this away. I'll probably take it with me to an event at some point and hand it over to somebody that wants to do the modifications themselves. But I'm only going to give it to someone that I trust is going to actually do a good enough job. I don't know, this feels risky. I don't think I should. I think I should just throw it in the bin. I've got no use for this. It's not as good as... That's a good idea. Let's just show you the difference between a Pinecil on 65 watts of power. Just put my hand in a load of flux as well. Nice. Need to find another heavy ground. Well, that should have cooled down by... Yeah, that's very cooled down now. Right, it's on 350, or apparently 350. Oh, this wasn't calibrated, was it? But it is 350-ish. Good enough. Let's see how this copes with the big heavy ground plane here. Yeah, it's similar. The solder got stuck there for a second, which it wouldn't with the Sugon. Again, it goes tacky. So this is of similar power to the it's of similar power to the T12Xplus thing to this. And I think that I would much rather have this. This is a bit more expensive. I mean, it's the same price for this and this are the same price. So these are about 30, 35 pounds, and this is about 30, 35 pounds. But you need a power supply with this as well. If you've got a laptop power supply already, like a 19-volt power supply, then this is definitely a no-brainer. You won't get a stand with it, but now, I mean, I'd pick up you can pick those up quite cheaply on Amazon and places. Get yourself, if you need a soldering iron, get yourself a Pinecil 64 if you want to not spend too much money. That is my takeaway from this. This is going in the bin. I still had fun. Wasn't a complete waste of time. I need to go and wash this flux off my hands now. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Bye. No dancing this time.